The flight attendant slapped him. No warning, no hesitation, just the sharp crack of her palm against a 4-year-old's cheek. And then silence, the kind that feels heavier than a scream. The boy staggered backward, blinking, stunned. His little hand rose to the burning side of his face. From his other hand, the crayon drawing fell, a plane flying through clouds, with the words, "For Daddy," written in shaky red. It hit the carpet softly, and then she ripped it. Right there, in front of everyone. Have you ever seen a child punished for simply sitting where he belongs? Tell us where you're watching from. Just moments before, Liam Patel had walked into the first-class cabin of SkyVista Flight SV-208 with stars in his eyes. It was his first solo flight, with Ms. Rodriguez by his side, and he was on his way to meet his father in St. Lucia. His chest puffed with pride. Daddy was about to receive an award, Ethics Pioneer of the Year, and Liam, he had drawn a plane just for him. But Cassandra Reed, the lead flight attendant, wasn't interested in sweet drawings or medical exceptions. "Children under 6 aren't allowed in this cabin," she said flatly, arms crossed. "Policy." Ms. Rodriguez stayed calm. "He's under special care, and he's—" "I don't care," Cassandra snapped. "Move him." Liam hugged his drawing tighter. "But my daddy said—" That's when she slapped him and ripped the picture in two. Gasps echoed. One man froze with his coffee midair. A woman whispered to her husband, "Did she just—" But no one stood. No one stopped her. Except someone noticed something else. A passenger in 3A squinted. "Wait, is that—" He didn't finish the sentence, because under the cuff of Liam's sweater, a green bracelet had started to blink red. He didn't cry. He just knelt, trembling, gathering the torn paper like it was a broken part of himself. The light on his bracelet pulsed faster. Far away in Palo Alto, in a glass tower, a server received a signal. A line of code lit up. "Skithic protocol breach. Class A. Child distress detected." And the sky began to shift. Liam sat still in his oversized first-class seat, knees drawn to his chest, eyes glued to the crumpled paper in his hands. One half of his drawing was folded over the other, as if putting them together might make it whole again. But it didn't. It just made the rip look deeper. Across the aisle, a woman in pearls leaned toward her husband and whispered behind her hand, "This is why they shouldn't let kids in first class." He nodded without looking up from his newspaper. Entitlement starts early. Liam didn't hear every word, but he knew that tone. The kind grown-ups used when they thought kids weren't listening, or didn't matter. No one asked if he was okay. No one offered tape, or even a kind look. Ms. Rodriguez gently placed a blanket over his lap. "It's all right, sweetheart," she said quietly, but her voice cracked, like she didn't believe her own words. She glanced up at the curtain that separated them from the flight attendant who slapped him. Her eyes narrowed, a soft anger she didn't let reach her mouth. A businessman 2 seats down clicked his tablet screen, eyes scanning some market chart like nothing had happened. Another man across the aisle pretended to sleep, arms crossed, earbuds in. Liam sniffled once but didn't cry. Instead, he whispered to Ms. Rodriguez, "I was trying to be good." "I know," she said, brushing his hair back gently. "You were perfect." He looked down at his wrist. The green bracelet blinked faintly now, like it knew, like it was watching. Outside the window, clouds drifted past in slow, endless motion, free and white and untouched. Inside the cabin, everything felt cold. And for the first time in his life, Liam wondered, what if Daddy was wrong? What if I don't belong here? In a corner office high above Palo Alto, Arjun Patel froze mid-sentence. His boardroom was glass-walled and sleek, sun pooling across a polished table where 5 department heads had gathered to finalize the ethics expansion rollout. But on his tablet, a red alert flashed across the bottom corner. Sky Ethic Breach. Class A. Minor distress detected. Device: Liam Patel. Flight SV-208. Arjun didn't move for a full second. Then he swiped the screen. The interface shifted to a live biometric feed, Liam's. Heart rate elevated. Stress spikes. Oxygen saturation dipping slightly. No words, no video, just numbers. But Arjun read them like a scream. His son was in trouble. He stood so fast his chair rolled back into the wall. "Cancel the next hour," he told his assistant without turning. "And secure a private line to SV-208's flight data stream, now." The room fell silent behind him. Back at the desk, he entered a passcode only 3 people in the company even knew. The Sky Ethic core opened. A control panel designed not for profit, but protection. Arjun designed it himself, after seeing too many apologies arrive too late. It was meant to catch what customer service couldn't, and Liam's bracelet was the first prototype. His hand hovered over the screen. If he tapped override, every entertainment screen on flight SV-208 would freeze. The cabin would know something had gone wrong, and soon, so would the world. He took a breath, remembering the last thing Liam said before leaving for the flight. "I'll be good, Daddy. I promise." Arjun's jaw clenched. "This isn't about good," he whispered. "It's about right." And he pressed the button. Half a world away, above the clouds, a soft red pulse blinked faster on a child's wrist. The storm hadn't hit yet. But now, it had been invited. Liam didn't speak. He sat curled beneath the light gray blanket, knees tucked under his chin, staring at the faint crease in the seat where his drawing used to rest. The first-class curtain was now behind him, thin fabric, thick with meaning. The cabin lights glowed low and warm, but nothing about the space felt comforting. The man beside him sighed audibly and shifted, clearly annoyed by the presence of a child in business class. Across the aisle, a woman tightened her silk scarf and adjusted her noise-canceling headphones, like Liam's quiet breathing was a disruption. Nobody asked him what happened. Nobody offered him a smile. A few seats up, someone whispered, "That's the boy from earlier." Another replied, "Should have stayed in economy." Ms. Rodriguez leaned in closer. "You okay, sweetheart?" she whispered. Liam didn't answer. He just nodded faintly, though his eyes stayed locked on the seat back in front of him. His small fingers traced the corner of the tray table, over and over, like if he could feel the edge enough, it might anchor him. "He said I belong here," Liam mumbled finally. "He said I'd be safe." Ms. Rodriguez's eyes softened. She brushed a hand over his curls. "You do belong, and you will be." But even her voice sounded like it was trying to believe it. Outside the window, clouds rolled beneath them like slow rivers of cotton. Peaceful, unbothered. Inside, the hush was weighty. Not peaceful, just quiet in the wrong way. From the corner of the cabin, the flight attendant from earlier peered in, then quickly turned away. She didn't speak to Liam, didn't meet his eyes. And behind the curtain, the one that had pushed Liam out, there was laughter. Real, relaxed laughter from first class. Liam closed his eyes, not to sleep, just to disappear, because right now, even the sky didn't feel big enough to hold him. Cassandra Reed moved down the aisle with robotic grace, adjusting champagne flutes with gloved fingers. To the other passengers, she was the picture of efficiency, polished, professional. But to Liam, she was a shadow that hadn't left since the slap. She hadn't looked his way again, not once, but that didn't mean she was done. As she passed their row, her eyes flicked, barely noticeable, to the boy in 4D. His head was down, fingers still rubbing the frayed edge of the seatbelt. The torn halves of his drawing were now tucked under the corner of the tray table, guarded like treasure no one else valued. "Children should be in family cabins," she muttered under her breath, just loud enough. "Not occupying premium space." Ms. Rodriguez's head snapped up, but Cassandra had already moved on. A man across the aisle cleared his throat like he might say something, but then he didn't. And Liam? He didn't move, didn't flinch. But under the blanket, the green band on his wrist began to pulse. Slow, steady, growing brighter with each beat. Thousands of miles away, back in Palo Alto, a secure server recognized the biometric escalation. Sky Ethic response threshold met. Level 4 trigger imminent. Inside Arjun Patel's office, a panel lit up. He didn't hesitate. He tapped once. Blue Whisper protocol enabled. The system responded instantly, quiet, controlled, irreversible. Onboard flight SV-208, the seatback screens flickered. The lights dimmed half a shade. A soft chime sounded, different from any routine signal. One by one, the cabin monitors froze. Someone whispered, "That's odd." Cassandra looked up, confused. But Liam looked straight ahead. His fingers tightened around Ms. Rodriguez's hand. The slap was done. The silence had passed. Now, something was shifting. The cabin dimmed just slightly. Not enough for panic, just enough for tension. Cassandra paused mid-step near the galley. The seatback screens, normally rotating between maps and movies, were frozen. A few blinked twice, then went completely black. She tapped her earpiece. "Captain, we've got a system hiccup up front. Seat monitors just glitched. Want me to reset?" No answer. She tried again. "Cabin crew to cockpit. Do you read?" Nothing but static. Around her, passengers started glancing around. A woman with a tablet tried tapping her screen. "It's not working. I was watching something." A man further down murmured, "My map's gone." Still, no announcement, no explanation, just a growing buzz of confusion. Cassandra forced a smile. "Looks like we're experiencing a minor AV outage. Cabin systems will be restored shortly." But her voice cracked slightly at the end. Behind her, Ms. Rodriguez reached over and gently wrapped the blanket tighter around Liam's shoulders. He hadn't moved since the chime. His little hands were in his lap, fingers softly curled. His breathing was slow, focused. The bracelet on his wrist had stopped blinking green. Now, it glowed white, not flashing, not pulsing, just constant, like it was waiting for something. In the cockpit, the captain furrowed his brow. A silent priority override had locked out their comms for exactly 5 minutes. His co-pilot turned. "That's not a system error, that's a signal, a high-clearance one." They both stared at the code on screen. BW1, executed origin, Ethic Core, Palo Alto. The captain swallowed. Who on this plane triggered a Blue Whisper? Back in row 4, Cassandra turned, her eyes now scanning the cabin, not for safety, but for a source, for control. But she didn't realize the moment had already passed. She wasn't running the flight anymore. The system was. Cabin crew, be advised. SkyVista Ethics Overlay is now live on flight SV-208. All crew interactions will be recorded, assessed, and reported for real-time compliance review. The message played once. Calm. Neutral. No room for questions. Cassandra stared at the cabin intercom panel, heart thudding against her chest. That wasn't a routine broadcast. That was internal. That was corporate level. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" she muttered. The junior flight attendant looked pale. "Is that the system they test for training modules? I thought it wasn't deployed yet." "It's not," Cassandra snapped. "Unless—" She didn't finish. But her breath quickened. Passengers began to notice, not the message, but the vibe, the stillness, the way monitors flickered back on. Only now they weren't playing movies. They showed words. Cabin under integrity review. Do not interfere. Someone in 2A sat straighter. "I've never seen this before." Another whispered, "Is this a test flight?" Back in 4D, Liam didn't move, but his bracelet had changed again. White light, now rimmed in amber. Ms. Rodriguez watched it glow quietly under the boy's sleeve. She didn't say a word, but something inside her shifted. "Are you all right?" she asked again, gently. This time Liam looked up. Not fearful, not even sad, just steady. "I'm not supposed to say anything," he said softly. Ms. Rodriguez blinked. "Why not?" He shrugged. "Daddy said sometimes silence is stronger." Up front, Cassandra stepped into the galley, heart racing. She looked at the security panel, then the phone. Should she report this? Call corporate? The FAA? But deep down, a cold realization hit her. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't about protocol. This was about her, and someone up there, someone powerful and silent, was watching. The cabin lights dimmed again, subtle, almost unnoticeable. But then came the real shift. Every seatback screen lit up. No movies, no flight maps. Just a single message in bold gray letters against a white background. "This flight is under active review by SkyVista Ethics Control. Real-time oversight has been authorized by Executive Tier." Gasps filled the air like turbulence. A man in 3A said aloud, "Executive Tier? That means corporate C-suite." A woman near the front whispered, "Is this legal?" Cassandra stood frozen near the galley. Her earpiece buzzed again, this time with something she'd never heard before. "Lead Flight Attendant Cassandra Reed, your voice log and behavior data have been indexed for full compliance review under Policy 3.47. Stand by." Her knees nearly buckled. This wasn't protocol. This was personal. In row 4, Liam said nothing, but the white and amber glow of his bracelet now pulsed gently, like it was syncing to something only it could hear. Ms. Rodriguez's phone vibrated softly. She pulled it out. A SkyVista alert appeared. "Cabin-level ethics oversight initiated. Remain calm. Do not interfere with the subject under protection." She looked at Liam, then the word subject. Oh, thousands of miles away. Arjun Patel stood in a soundproof command pod deep inside SkyVista headquarters. His voice didn't carry into the cabin, but his actions did. On screen, his secure signature flashed once. Encrypted, anonymous, absolute. He didn't need to be seen. He didn't need to shout. His son was on that plane. And someone had crossed a line. Back in the cabin, Cassandra stumbled back into the galley and gripped the counter. She had dealt with complaints before. Angry customers, crying babies, delayed flights. But this was something else. This was someone else. The captain's voice finally crackled through the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to an unexpected systems alert, we'll be making an early descent into San Juan International. Estimated landing in 23 minutes. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." There was no turbulence, no weather issue. But the cabin shifted with unease. Cassandra leaned into the galley wall, whispering frantically into the internal line. "Why are we diverting? The flight path was cleared for St. Lucia." The first officer responded coldly. "Command override came through the executive channel. Non-negotiable. We land. And, Cassandra, they asked for your full crew manifest upon arrival." Her mouth went dry. "Who asked?" Silence. Back in row 4, Liam sat quietly as Ms. Rodriguez gently buckled him in. She tucked the torn paper under his blanket like it still mattered, like it could be fixed. Passengers had stopped pretending now. The man across the aisle glanced at the bracelet on Liam's wrist. "You notice that thing? Looks like a medical band." His wife leaned in. "No, that's not hospital tech. I think that's something corporate. He hasn't cried once. Doesn't act like a normal kid." A young woman up front added, "He's not panicking. He knows what's happening. Maybe he's connected to whoever's watching." The tension spread like fog. Everyone sensed it. This wasn't just about a child. At the front, a gate agent's voice buzzed through the cockpit line. "SkyVista HQ confirmed. Entire crew to remain on board upon landing. Security will meet plane at gate." The captain didn't argue. He'd flown 28 years. He'd never seen this kind of override. He looked out the windshield, the runway just coming into view. Whatever was waiting on the ground, was bigger than protocol, and more powerful than anyone they'd ever answered to. The plane touched down with a soft thud, the wheels humming across the San Juan tarmac like a warning whispered through metal. But there was no cheer, no unbuckling, just silence. The usual welcome to your destination didn't play. Instead, a flat voice from the cockpit said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. Airport authorities will be boarding momentarily. Do not stand until instructed." Murmurs rippled through the cabin. A man near the front asked, "Did we get hijacked without knowing it?" Someone else said, "No, this is corporate. This is something above the FAA." Cassandra stood in the galley, hands clenched behind her back. She'd redone her lipstick, smoothed her hair, put on her most neutral expression. But her hand, they trembled, just enough to notice. The cabin door opened slowly. 2 uniformed men stepped in, badges, not weapons. Behind them, a SkyVista compliance officer wearing a silver lanyard and a tablet. "Lead Attendant Cassandra Reed." Her head snapped up. "Yes? Please step forward. You'll remain on board for debrief." Passengers stared. The couple in row 2 exchanged glances. A woman whispered, "That's the one. She slapped the boy." The words rippled, fast, louder than they were spoken. In row 4, Liam still hadn't spoken, but his bracelet glowed pale blue now, calm, resolved. Ms. Rodriguez placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. She looked up just as Cassandra passed them on the way to the rear. Their eyes met for half a second. Cassandra's face was still, but her cheeks had drained of color. For the first time, she didn't look like someone in control. She looked like someone being seen. The rest of the cabin waited. More compliance staff boarded. No one shouted. No one resisted. But the tone was unmistakable. This wasn't a routine stop. A soft chime played overhead. This time, the monitors displayed a final message. "SkyVista passenger dignity protocol is in effect. All reports under Section 4P91 will be public recorded." Gasps. A man said, "They're making this public?" Another muttered, "Damn right they should." And then the shift happened. A child in row 6 stood up, ignoring the "stay seated" request, and walked toward Liam with a crayon and a folded napkin. "Here," he said, "you can draw something new." The boy's father called him back, but then paused, watched, and let him stay. Liam took the napkin quietly, nodded, and for the first time since the slap, he smiled. Just a little. Behind him, the cabin wasn't just quiet anymore. It was waiting, watching, and somewhere in that waiting was something close to justice. San Juan's jet bridge locked into place with a hiss, but no one moved. Outside, 5 unmarked black SUVs had lined up on the tarmac. Not flashy, just final. Inside them sat people whose names never appeared on press releases, but whose signatures could collapse contracts. Inside the plane, the air had shifted. Gone was the subtle tension. Now there was clarity and consequence. In a private operations suite overlooking the gate, Arjun Patel stood silently behind a wall of live feeds. No tie, no PR team, just a father, a systems architect, and a CEO who had once promised his son he'd never be left alone in a place that didn't see him. He watched as Cassandra Reed was quietly escorted off the plane, not in handcuffs, but under full observation. The kind of walk where everyone knows the fall has begun, even if they don't see the floor yet. A compliance officer turned to Arjun. "Shall we issue the cabin footage to press embargo, sir?" Arjun's eyes didn't move from the screen. "No embargo. Release it in full, and make sure every gate agent, pilot, and attendant in the country sees it by sunrise." Back in the cabin, the passengers were finally allowed to stand. Slow, careful. Ms. Rodriguez helped Liam with his backpack. He clutched the folded napkin drawing in one hand and slid his little fingers into hers with the other. He didn't ask what was happening. He didn't need to. The glow from his bracelet had faded. Its job was done. As they stepped off the plane, a quiet corridor waited. Not a mob, not media, just recognition. A SkyVista representative bent down to Liam's level. "Young man," she said gently, "your seat is waiting in the car. But before that, Mr. Patel would like to see you, if you're ready." Liam nodded, then paused. "Can Ms. Rodriguez come too?" The woman smiled. "Absolutely." Upstairs, Arjun knelt as his son entered. No hug yet, just a steady hand on Liam's shoulder. "You okay, buddy?" Liam nodded, then whispered, "I didn't say anything, like you said, even when it hurt." Arjun swallowed hard. "I know, and you were stronger than I ever asked you to be." Then Liam reached into his jacket pocket, the torn drawing, still folded. She stepped on it. Arjun took it carefully, unfolded it on the table. A broken spaceship and a stick figure with messy hair stood among the creases. He didn't smooth it out. He just looked at it like it was whole. An assistant entered quietly. "Sir, the FAA just called. They're requesting immediate review of all inter-airline youth protection policies. Also, the ethics board wants to meet." Word spreading. Arjun simply nodded. "Then we do it. Not just for him, for every kid who didn't have a bracelet." Outside, news was already breaking. Flight attendant suspended mid-air after ethics system triggered by CEO's son. SkyVista activates full transparency review. Airline industry on edge. Father's silent power. How Arjun Patel changed aviation with a tap. On the tarmac, Cassandra sat in a holding area. A monitor in the corner played footage from the cabin, silent, without narration. The moment she raised her hand. The moment Liam didn't move. The moment no one around him did either. Until now. The next day, 3 major U.S. airlines voluntarily signed onto the SkyVista Youth Passenger Protection Accord, a new ethics charter drafted overnight and backed by FAA oversight. Clause 1. No child can be relocated, reprimanded, or physically touched on any flight, unless under immediate safety threat. With video, passenger witness, and verified staff escalation. Clause 2. All children in premium cabins will be guaranteed equal treatment, regardless of appearance, relation, or age. And at a press conference 2 days later, Ms. Rodriguez stood at a podium, by choice. Not as a passenger, but as a voice. "This wasn't just about a child being hurt," she said into dozens of microphones. "It was about a system that believed the silence meant safety. Liam showed us it didn't, and his father showed us it doesn't have to stay that way." Back home, in his room filled with space posters and Legos, Liam drew again. This time, the spaceship wasn't broken. And the stick figure? This one had a name tag. Captain Liam. The sky had changed, and now it remembered who it truly belonged to. 1 week later, Liam stood on a small stage at the SkyVista Ethics barely tall enough for the microphone to reach his chin. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. Beside him, Ms. Rodriguez placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. On the other side, Arjun stood with his arms crossed, proud, still, and more father than CEO. Behind them, a massive screen played silent clips from Flight SV-208. No narration, no dramatics, just truth. A boy in 4D, a hand raised against him, a cabin that froze, and a light, small, on his wrist, that refused to be ignored. That light, the SkyVista Blue Whisper bracelet, would soon become standard across all family-designated seats. But no one talked about it like tech anymore. Now, they called it Liam's band. In the days after the landing, the internet had erupted. People weren't just angry, they were awakened. Parents flooded comment sections with stories. Former flight attendants came forward with what they had witnessed. Civil rights attorneys reposted the clip with one caption: "Silent doesn't mean invisible." But the most powerful post came from a teenager named Amina, who had been removed from business class as a child. She wrote, "I didn't have a bracelet, or a father like Liam's, but I remember what it felt like to be moved because they thought I didn't belong. Now I know that moment wasn't my shame. It was the system's. Thank you, Liam." In a quiet corner of SkyVista HQ, the original drawing, creased, stepped on, rescued. was framed and hung behind glass. It wasn't restored. It wasn't redrawn. It stayed torn, because that was the point. Arjun placed a small plaque beneath it. He didn't raise his voice. He raised a standard. And yet, even after all the headlines faded, Liam didn't talk much about the flight. At night, he still asked his dad if people would try to move him again. Arjun would smile and say, "No, kiddo. Now they'll move the system instead." On the anniversary of the flight, SkyVista launched the Passenger Dignity Index, an industry-first rating that scored airlines not just on performance, but on how they treated the voiceless, the young, the elderly, the quiet. It was voluntary at first. Then it wasn't. Within 6 months, 19 major airports made Dignity Index scores a requirement for route approvals. 3 CEOs stepped down. 2 airlines restructured their entire crew training system. And it all started with a child who didn't say a word. Ms. Rodriguez kept in touch with the Patels. She'd never flown first class before that day. Never thought she'd matter in a corporate meeting. Now, she sat on the advisory board for SkyVista Ethics Council. And every time someone asked why she stepped in that day, she said, "Because the only thing scarier than silence is watching a child be silenced." At home, Liam still wore the newer version of his bracelet sometimes. Not because he needed it, just because he liked the way it felt. He liked knowing it was there, like a quiet friend. One night before bed, he looked up at his dad. "Daddy?" "Yeah?" "Does the sky still remember me?" Arjun knelt down, pulled him into his arms. "No, kiddo," he whispered. "It never forgot you. Tell us where you're watching from. And if this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter where they're seated in life. We see you, and your story deserves to be told.